Hey everybody, this is Professor Snart. Just want to check into our course here, make sure everything's going okay, and take a look at our upcoming units. Even though, because we have spring break coming up, our Unit 10 undertaking is a little ways away, I especially want to jump in here because Unit 10 is maybe one of the most involved units we've got. Not only is the project pretty substantial, but it has us working in groups, so there's that extra layer of just like communicating with people and figuring out who's available locally, who's not available locally. So I'm going to walk us through a bit of that. Now, far in advance of the due date, depending on when you're watching this, I guess, but still in an effort to really sort of facilitate this group work, which I think produces really great results, and it does kind of connect you with your classmates. But again, because we're online, it takes another, I think, extra effort or slightly more layers of upfront planning to make it go smoothly. Okay, so let's see. Reviewing our due dates here, since we're right on this page. Coming out of our sonnets unit, we do another poetry thing, and that kind of takes us into the break. A quick video essay, which I'll walk us through in just a sec. There's another midterm course evaluation, again, just kind of getting some feedback from you, spring break, and then that Unit 10, which is really what I want to spend the bulk of this announcement looking at. Okay, so first Unit 9, the last of our poetry units, kind of the capstone of this, of our study of this genre here in our course. Notice that I've built in already some early looking ahead to Unit 10, and I'm asking you right up front as part of Unit 9, so this Unit 10 planning is happening right now, to email me about your availability, like literally, are you local and on campus, to do real-time face-to-face group work. So kind of the more traditional, group work that you would do if you were in a fully face-to-face class. Or are you like completely not in the state or the area or the country or whatever, all of which I run into. That's why people take online classes. So this isn't just your preference, right? Even if you're on campus, I want people available to work with other folks from our class. This is literally just if you are completely not in this area and then simply can't do that face-to-face collaboration. Email me now as the first thing you do as part of Unit 9 to let me know, and I will build groups, of course, based on who's literally here or not here. Okay, then we have Unit 9, which has nothing to do with that part of it. That's just set up for Unit 10. So Unit 9, still in our poetry area, has us reading a bunch of different poems, invitations to the database to help give you some background for the poetry. A couple of quizzes, again, fairly low point value, just to sort of draw your attention to some of what's going on in just a couple of the readings that we're doing. And then the main assignment, again, embedded as a Google Doc, so be sure you're scrolling through the whole thing. And it's sort of a lot of text for so that everything is explained kind of fully. So we're going to do a fairly traditional kind of assignment here, but in a fairly non-traditional kind of way. So the assignment itself is just a comparative analysis, a comparative essay that's going to ask you to compare one of the poems, right, from this unit, and there's a bunch that we've read up here, to a piece of music, a song that you're familiar with and ideally that you like, kind of that you've listened to a bunch of times. It doesn't need to be a contemporary one necessarily, but it's one that kind of resonates with you. So absolutely don't just pick a poem, title, and like Google songs that go with it. Try to make it a more authentic choice on your part. So again, fairly traditional kind of comparative approach. We want to think about an introduction where we explain why these two things are alike. We want to develop some specific points of comparison, which would sort of be like the body paragraphs of that essay. So we don't just want to pick two poems and say, oh, they're both about love or death or some humongous general subject. That's kind of a place to start, I guess. But that's really just a topic idea. We want to dig much deeper into like a thesis that really draws these works together, and then some specific subpoints that really connect each of the pieces. And of course, we want to quote from each of those, let's call them texts, one the poem and the other the song. And then we can conclude in the traditional way, sort of restating the idea. Again, pretty conventional. We're going to do this as a video essay, though. I think it's helpful, like I explained at the very bottom of this document here, for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we're fully online, doing this as a video essay, even if your face is never on camera, just having your voice there talking to us like I'm doing now, it sort of humanizes the course and the experience, which I think is fundamentally a good thing. The other more practical or pedagogical reason, or more specific reason, at least to this assignment, is that I think being able to talk to us more or less naturally about the idea of how this poem and song are connected, in your mind, like how you see the connection, if you can talk to us naturally, conversationally about that, it usually indicates a more, I would say, deeper level of understanding than if you just sat down to write an essay, because the essay is such a traditional form. You don't really have to think off the top of your head, or you don't have to think that quickly. You just sort of cover what you cover, and that's it. So the video essay does still depend to some degree on you making an outline. So you're not just going to literally talk off the top of your head. Make an outline so you're not scrambling for words or too panicked, or you don't just forget things. So you want to make an outline that maybe includes the basic idea, some specific quotes you want to cover, but don't by any means write out a full essay and then just read it like into the camera. We definitely don't want that going on. It should, like I say here, feel more conversational than just being read at. Okay, so you could simply record yourself, like looking at a webcam. You can do that if you want. But I feel like there's lots more interesting strategies, whether you capture your screen like I'm doing here and you're talking over it, get more creative than I'm getting here, show us some interesting things, highlight, move the mouse around, flip between windows, whatever you want to do that really, in your mind, brings that comparison to life. There's lots of free screen recorders out there too, if you're not familiar with any. I'm strongly recommending that people upload that file to YouTube. You can, I think, make it unlisted. You turn the comments off. So yes, it's out there in, internet world, but it's pretty protected, to be honest with you. Again, some quick tips for uploading to YouTube. I'm guessing that a few folks, if not everybody, has done that kind of stuff before. And then I'm inviting you to create a new portfolio page where you're going to insert that video. And you guys can let me know actually about this, because I'm suggesting unlisted here, and of course the comments off. I'm interested to know if setting it to unlisted causes problems on the portfolio page, like it doesn't display correctly. If that's the case, then you can let me know and we can figure out a way around that. Okay, again, just sort of walk through for the technical part. As always, right, be in touch, especially because this is a little more maybe technically involved than we've been before, and I don't want to assume that people just kind of know how to do that, or can necessarily figure it out, on your own. But be in touch earlier rather than later. Don't struggle with it and then just you're up against the due date and you're kind of stuck. Okay, so you're going to make sure you publish that updated portfolio so the new page is kind of locked in, and then use the discussion board here where it says Unit 9 Poetry to post the URL, so your video will be accessible by everybody. And then responding to at least 4, again, using the discussion board feature, the reply part of that. So we have, as usual, our 2 due date systems going here, or double due date system. The first one where your essay is due, the posting has to be done, and then we have that time for replying. Here's a little, at the bottom, kind of a reminder of, or a review of what I just said about like why we're doing it this way. Okay, and then the very last thing you'll see in Unit 9, actually, again, like where we started, brings us back into Unit 10. So by the end of Unit 9, I should have heard from everybody, yeah, I can do face-to-face. No, I can't. I live in wherever. I know one of our group is in Texas, for example. Okay, so I should have all of those names compiled by then, and I'll build out our group planning document. So where it says group here, I'll actually have people's names plugged in. And I want you, as part of Unit 9, to get in here, and all we're doing here is just identifying a means of communication. So you don't really have to do a ton of work. And again, we have spring break. Not that I expect necessarily people to do work, but you do have that cushion before turning right around to the actual Unit 10 to at least get in touch with your group and figure out, okay, could we work over the break? Are people around? Are people traveling? Whatever it happens to be. So there's just another planning doc that is part of Unit 9. It's really important that you get into. And then I'm going to jump into Unit 10 here that'll sort of button this up a little bit, because by this point, when we're actually post-spring break and doing this work, we should already have this part worked out, who's in which group and whether you're face-to-face real-time or asynchronous. So now we're in the drama section of our course. We're reading a play called Trifles by Susan Glaspell. It's relatively short. I haven't found a ton of good video resources for it. Normally I'd want us to watch or look at a play. That's how they're meant to be experienced. I feel it's kind of artificial to be just reading it off the page. And so to combat that, one thing we're going to do after we read, again, our little quiz that we're going to do, is at least the face-to-face group, your job is to choose a little scene or moment from the play and actually stage it and then record it. There's lots of different creative ways you can do this. You don't have to stick to some existing model of how someone else has done this. But part of what I want us to experience or think about as far as drama goes isn't just analyzing text on a page, but actually thinking about all the things that go into producing like a play and our experience of that dramatic work. So it's not just the words that someone would speak, it's everything from scenery, what's called blocking, or like where people stand relative to one another on the stage, issues of lighting, kind of the bigger idea of staging in a production, whether people are dress in period or different period or just contemporary. And of course we're working within the constraints of probably filming in someone's living room or a place on campus. So I get it, we don't need slick Hollywood production, but I do want people to think, especially about blocking, because what you'll see in the play is it's a lot about gender dynamics or power dynamics, who sort of has power, who doesn't, and how those two groups interact with one another. And it happens in the words, but it also happens in the way that people are spaced in the room and who moves around and who doesn't, or who might be sitting versus standing, to again communicate that idea of power or powerlessness. And really the play kind of inverts the people that we think would have power or who believe that they have power, and those who are really kind of powerless. But actually the irony of the play is that those who are least stereotypically powerful actually wield most of the power in the play. Lighting, staging, etc., etc. Okay, so you're going to make your own set. Again, I get it. We're working under some fairly, limited constraints of just being realistic. But don't have two people just sit down at a kitchen table. Well, actually, a kitchen table might be a good choice, but you get what I'm saying. Don't just stand somewhere and read the words to one another. That's not really cool. We're looking for about 5 minutes, but we can be flexible. I don't want 1 or 2, and you don't feel obliged to do 20 minutes of recorded video. That's just a little much. I'd rather it be shorter than, say, 20, but a little more thought out. Again, people aren't probably going to memorize lines exactly, but you can probably come close and or think of really creative ways so you're not just reading a book to somebody else. I would also invite you to think about creative ways to stage this where maybe a voice is happening and we're seeing something else. Claymation might be a little time consuming, but I'm thinking sock puppets. I'm thinking there's a lot of ways to do this where we wouldn't actually have to see somebody reading from a script, which I get kind of has to happen maybe, but is really off-putting. Okay, all of this I'll let you read through, but again, this is really our opportunity to read the play, but then think about it through the lens of how you would actually see it being performed and how the idea or the theme of the play emerges from so much more than just the text on the page. So once your group is done recording, getting it into YouTube, you're just using the discussion board that's actually at the bottom of this. You can barely see it off my screen here. This is going to be our collecting place, excuse me, for all of the work that each of the groups is doing for this unit. So you're posting and then each of the groups has a reply. So you're posting as a group, include all your group members' names, but then each individual in the class is responding to at least 2 other posts. The alternate assignment, which I'm guessing we'll need, but maybe not, this would be the online or asynchronous group, the folks who just aren't local, can't work face-to-face. They are going to develop what I'm calling a teacher's resource that you could actually give or supply to a teacher to teach the play Trifles. So just for time's sake, I'm going to let the groups or the people involved with this kind of read through it. It's a little more, I think, conventional of an assignment compared with the staging and filming one above. No matter whether you choose to do like a website or a Google slide deck as your teacher resource, it has to have all of these components. Again, it should be like readable. The design should be consistent. It should be something that a teacher could actually show to a group of students. And one thing that I really want you to be intentional about is what group of students and what class this is for. Because the way that you might present something or prepare something for a grade 8 ELA class is going to be a lot different than what you might prepare for a college class. And we don't even have to default to kind of the most obvious choice I made here, like an Intro to Lit class. Could this be used in maybe a sociology class or something that is not quite so obvious? Again, share that URL with me early, right away, right? Share it to this web address or this email address. That's my Google, my professional Google address. Again, use the discussion board below, just off my screen once it's done. And then once you've posted, each person needs to reply to 2 other posts. Clearly, you don't need to reply to your own project type, so anybody can reply to anybody else's project here. Okay, kind of a long announcement, but walking us through a lot of what's going on from Unit 9, getting us set up for our group work that will be Unit 10, and then kind of giving you a heads up, because I think this is one of our more involved units as far as, again, just coordinating groups and then getting the actual, video thing done or the collaborative project done down here. So if I don't check in before, I probably will, but if I don't, by all means have a great spring break, and of course be in touch with me if you have any questions, concerns, or you need tech help or whatever the case might be. And again, as part of Unit 9, the first thing that I want you to do is check in with me directly by email about whether you are local and can do the face-to-face collaboration, or if you simply cannot do that. It's not preference, it's you cannot do that, and you'd have to be part of the alternate assignment option. I need to know that really right now, first thing in Unit 9, so I can set things up and we can get collaborating right away. All right, I'm going to cut myself off here, and I will talk with everybody soon.